Erica from 5littlemonsters.com, and today I wanted to do a quick video tutorial showing how we made these doll blankets using this loop yarn. I shared a written blog post on my site a couple days ago, but as I was writing it out, I realized this is one of those things that would be a lot easier to show how to do than to write how to do. So I thought I'd just do a quick video showing how to make these blankets. So we made them in a few different sizes. This one was one that we made for like an 18-inch doll. We also made a smaller version for a Barbie doll. You can make it for a baby doll size. So what you're going to need is some of this loop yarn. I have a couple different kinds here just to show you some of the differences. So this one is more of like a blanket yarn, chenille yarn type yarn. And this one has kind of a braided yarn as the base. And the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to figure out how wide you want your blanket. And that's going to depend on which yarn you use too. Like, it's not one set number of loops, because you can see the loops on this yarn are a little bit taller and bigger, but they're also spaced closer together. So the same number of loops in this yarn and this yarn, this one's going to be a little bit wider, this one's going to be a little bit thinner, but this one will be a little bit higher and this one will be a little bit shorter. So you'll need less rows. But regardless of which yarn you use, you can pick how long or how wide you want your blanket to be. For the purposes of this video, just to make it really short, since it's going to be the same process regardless of how many loops you use, I'm only going to do 6 loops. So it's going to be really narrow, but it'll show you the process and how to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is take, you can see there's a little thread connecting the loops. So I'm going to take the first 2 loops and I'm just going to clip that thread in the middle. And that's going to give me a little bit of a tail. And at the end, I can take that tail and I can weave it in to make a more secure end for my blanket so it doesn't come apart. And then the next thing I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to use 6 loops for this example. So I'm going to count out 6 loops. So that's to there. And that's how wide I'm going to make my blanket. So this first row is the trickiest row to get started, but once you get it going, it's a lot easier. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this next loop and you're going to pull it through the back of that. So if this is loop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you're going to take loop 7 and you're going to put it through loop 6. So that's your first stitch. Then you're going to take this next loop, so that would be like the 8th loop, and put it through your 5th loop, your second to last loop on this first row. And you're going to continue that all the way across with each loop. And it is, I find, a lot easier to do just leaving your yarn on your flat surface, because it kind of keeps everything lined up nicely. So once you've got all 6 loops, so your first 6 loops and then your second 6 loops pulled through, that row is done. And that's how you're going to do each row. I find it easiest to take your working yarn, and when you're ready to start your next row, just kind of flip it so it's right over the top of where you need it to go. And that way the loops are kind of just in the right place. So you can take your first loop of this row, put it through that last stitch of the row before, and continue across, pulling your next loop on your working yarn through your next loop on your project. And you can see those knit stitches starting to form. So then again, just take your yarn and pull it over the top and repeat the same process. You're just going to continue that until you have the length that you, or the height that you want on your blanket, until it's as big as you want. So I'm just going to do a couple more rows really quick, and then I'm going to show you how to bind off and end your project. Okay, so I think I've reached the size that I want to go with. So now I'm ready to bind off or end, because obviously you can't just end it with these loops here. It'll just come all undone. So you need to secure these last loops in the last row. So the way I'm going to do that is, again, I'm just going to flip my working yarn over so it's right above where I'm trying to put the loops in. And I'm going to take the first 2 loops and I'm going to work them just like I normally would. So take that first loop and put it through your first stitch, and then your second loop and put it through your second stitch. But before you move on, you're going to do your bind off, which means you're going to take this second loop and you're going to put it inside of your first stitch. You can see that kind of pulls that first stitch across the second stitch and it lays flat. So now we're going to move on to our third stitch, work it like you normally would. Then take this new loop that you just formed on the third stitch and put it through the second stitch. And again, it pulls that loop over and holds it flat along the top. Then you're going to take your fourth, repeat the same thing, work the stitch, and then pull it through your third stitch. Stitch number 5, pull it through, and then into your fourth. And you can see that's creating that bound off edge. And now for your last stitch, same thing, pull it through and then put it through your stitch number 5, and that leaves you with one last loop left there. So just like we did at the beginning, you're going to take your little thread and clip it, and I'm going to do 2 stitches. I just feel like that gives me a good length of tail. And then I'm just going to clip off that tail. So then I can take my end tail and just pull it through that final loop, and it secures that top edge and gives you kind of a nice, neat edge. Then all you have left to do is you're just going to weave in your ends at the beginning and the end, and you've got your little finished loop knit project. Obviously this is really small, but it's worked the exact same way as a larger project like this one. And you can make it any size. You can make it for a bigger doll. You can make it for a Barbie. This could even be used as like a little tiny, I know my girls have like little LOL dolls or something like that you could use, even just a little tiny one. But that's how you do the loom knit blankets. It's super easy, and the thing that I love about it is it's easy enough for kids. So even my daughters can make their own dolls blankets, and they love being able to make something themselves that then they can play with and use. I think it gives them a sense of accomplishment, that they feel like it's pretty special that they were able to make it themselves. So hopefully that helps show how you do it. It's really pretty simple. Like I said, that first row is a little bit tricky to get started, but after that, my girls were able to do it on their own. And then I would help them with the bind off row, but I'm sure that they could do that as well if I showed them how. Kind of a fun little project for kids to do, or even for adults. So at the beginning, I showed these different types of yarn, the more chenille kind, and then this one that I used in the sample. And these are different brands. This one is a Red Heart, and this one is a Loops and Thread from Michaels. And I just wanted to show really quick, I worked up a sample in the other yarn that's the exact same number of loops and the exact same number of rows. And I just wanted to show the difference between the two different yarns. So this one is 6 across, and this one is 6 across. This one is 9 tall and this one is 9 tall. And you can see this one is a little bit wider and this one is narrower, but this one is a lot taller because these loops are taller and closer together, and these loops are a little shorter and spaced with a little bit more space in between. And so that's why you don't really need to count out a certain number of loops for a certain size. Just look at it and kind of eyeball it and say, I want it to be this big, and then keep going until it's the length that you want. There are a lot of different brands of this yarn. There's versions that Lion Brand has put out, and Bernat, and Big Twist at Joann's. There's just a whole bunch of different types that you can get. And so each of them could be just a little bit different, but the process is the same in all of them. The way that you do the loops is exactly the same, regardless of which brand you get. For more craft projects and tutorials, you can go to FiveLittleMonsters.com to find crochet projects and other yarn crafts, as well as other types of craft sewing and Cricut crafts and things like that. So thanks for watching.